If a foreign leader refused to join a private court in the United States, and the president then threatened their country with economic ruin for not complying, we would rightfully call that imperialism. But Trump is calling this his Board of Peace plan. It's not peace, it's not diplomacy. This is a pay to enter imperial court chaired by Trump, potentially for life, where money buys power and refusal brings punishment. So, the full context of the story started with a White House statement on the next phase of the Gaza peace plan. Yesterday, President Donald Trump congratulated the formation of the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, INCAG, a vital step forward in implementing phase two in his comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict, a 20-point roadmap for lasting peace, stability, reconstruction, and prosperity in the region. The CCAG will be led by Dr. Ali Shahth, a widely respected technocratic leader who will oversee the restoration of core public services, the building of civil institutions, and the stabilization of daily life in Gaza, while laying the foundation for long term, self sustaining governance. Dr. Shahth brings deep experience in public administration, economic development, international engagement, and is widely respected for his pragmatic, technocratic leadership and understanding of Gaza's institutional realities. The milestone perfectly aligns with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2803, which endorsed President Trump's comprehensive plan and welcomed the establishment of the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace will play an essential role in fulfilling all 20 points of the president's plan, providing strategic oversight, mobilizing international resources, and ensuring accountability as Gaza transitions from conflict to peace and development. This goes over some of the most important people that would be a part of this Board of Peace to operationalize the Board of Peace vision under the chairmanship of President Donald J. Trump. A founding executive board has been formed, composed of leaders with experience across diplomacy, development, infrastructure, and economic strategy. The appointed members are Secretary Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Sir Tony Blair, Mark Rowan, AJ Banga, and Robert Gabriel. Just outright calling himself the chairman is already hilarious in a very terrifying way. But I think that we need to remind people exactly how Trump views the potential future for Gaza. This was a video that he released last year, right as he retook office.
Number one, Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
We have an opportunity to do something.
So this is what Trump envisions as the future of Gaza. Just to keep in mind, this was posted on his Truth Social. This is not someone else's AI slop. This is the president of the United States openly endorsing this. And I just think in the backdrop of a live stream genocide, as we are watching hundreds of thousands either get brutally injured or killed, the president of the United States is fantasizing about drinking cocktails with Benjamin Netanyahu in a Gaza resort. Like this is the man who's saying he's leading the Board of Peace, who's already showed what his true intentions are when it comes to assuming as much land as possible in the Gaza region.
Trump Gaza, number one.
The important things to emphasize from that original White House statement is that this is being framed as a temporary mechanism to oversee post ceasefire Gaza reconstruction. So, only meant to create stability. This is advantageous and favorable to a chaotic war environment. We want a board of peace. And it's being sold to allies and institutions as something that is Gaza specific and humanitarian. We just want to make sure that peace is in the region. That is the only motives that's from the Board of Peace. But a recent investigation from The Guardian shows that Trump's Board of Peace is an imperial court completely unlike what it was proposed. Important thing to highlight is the outline of Trump's Board of Peace, which has emerged over the past few days, is a long way from the body that the council thought it was endorsing. Resolution 2803 was passed 13-0, with Russia and China abstaining, as an attempt to give a UN imprimatur to Trump brokered ceasefire in Gaza. The discussions leading up to the vote on November 18th and the text of the resolution were all about the conflict. The Board of Peace swaps the inequity for another that is even more unjust, a permanence of a sort that can only be afforded by rich countries with $1 billion to spare. And in this new forum, Trump alone would have an absolute veto. While the charter has nothing to say about Gaza, the board will oversee a general executive board and a Gaza executive board, and beneath that, a national committee for the administration of Gaza, the highest level in which Palestinians themselves are permitted to participate. There is also an international stabilization force, the ISF, overseen by a U.S. Major General. So the final charter doesn't even mention Gaza at all. And it repeatedly names Donald Trump dozens of times, with him being inaugural chair and language allowing him to be there indefinitely. No other individual in the entire charter is given comparable authority. And Palestinians are downgraded to an advisory role, an executive board, a Gaza executive board. We need to break down what this is. This is the president of the United States using the full force of the US government to develop a private court in which he has full power. That is terrifying. If the Gaza peace plan has no mentions of Gaza and Trump is at the center of it all, that should tell you who this was really built for. Now, if you and your country want to join Trump's private court in which he has supreme authority, all you need is $1 billion, apparently. At least that's what this article from ABC News says. Trump could potentially chair Board of Peace for life. $1 billion contributions are voluntary from a U.S. official. The charter draft states that nations that accept the invitation will be given a 3-year membership term, but permanent membership would be given to member states that contribute more than $1 billion in cash to the Board of Peace within the first year. Now, you might be asking, where does all this money go? I mean, these are billions and billions of dollars. Funds will sit in approved accounts at reputable banks with CFO due diligence, executive board approval, and payments will require the right multi-signatory approval threshold, KYC and AML, and sanction screening and supporting documentation. Oversight is enforced through an audit and risk subcommittee and an independent annual external audit with published financials, the official said. Need not fear where all of this money is going. It will be handled appropriately by executives at reputable banks. That gave all of my worries pause. I feel so much secure now knowing that executives, private executives, will be handling the funds from foreign nations who are pressured into joining this board of peace. That's great. There's no democratic oversight on where the money is, no clear enforcement or accountability mechanism, no transparency in how these funds are even administered. I'm very excited for the prospects that this private court is presenting. They're openly saying that peace is not something negotiated, it's something that's purchased. You must purchase peace for your nation. Give me $1 billion, please, and I provide peace. But there's already countries that have said yes, that they will do Trump's bidding. Non surprisingly, Israel is one of those that has agreed to join. But a White House official said about 30 countries are expected to join the board without providing details. The official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe internal plans not yet made public said about 50 countries have been invited to join the organization. Norway and Sweden said Wednesday they won't accept their invitations after France also said no, stressing that while it supports the Gaza peace plan, it was concerned the board could seek to replace the UN as a main venue for resolving conflicts. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, said that he has agreed to join the board, a departure from an earlier stance when his office criticized the makeup of the board's committee tasked with overseeing Gaza. Months into the ceasefire, Gaza's more than 2 million Palestinians continue to suffer the humanitarian crisis unleashed by over 2 years of war. Israeli fire in the enclave on Wednesday left 11 Palestinians dead, health officials said. Since the ceasefire started, more than 460 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire, according to the Strip's health ministry. The ministry, which is part of the Hamas led government, maintains detailed casualty records that are seen as generally reliable by UN agencies and independent experts. Most of Gaza's population depend on firewood for cooking and heat as the Strip experiences a cold, wet winter. If part of the peace plan includes making the perpetrators of the genocide one of the lead voices in this supposed board, that should be concerning to anybody who wants stability in the region and long lasting peace. Several Western European nations declined to join. France explicitly refused participation. And so many others have cited concerns when it comes to sovereignty and lack of legitimacy. French President Emmanuel Macron has explicitly declined to participate in this board of peace, and Trump has decided to retaliate. This article from CNBC says Trump threatens 200% tariff on French wines as Macron reportedly snubs Board of Peace seat. Trump is reportedly saying, well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon, Trump said. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like being hostile, I'll put a 200% tariff on their wines and champagnes and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. U.S. trade group Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America criticized what it called a punitive trade threat. So this is the mentality of the president of the United States. Join my peace board now, or I will destroy your economy. That is not how you broker peace. That is not peace negotiations. That is you utilizing your seat as the head of an empire to coerce other nations to join in your private court. where oftentimes they're going to have to pay you $1 billion just because you're demanding it. Participation stops being about peace and it's more about avoiding punishment from the president of the United States and protecting the ego of a fragile man. The UN Security Council initially endorsed this concept because they believed that it was temporary, it was Gaza specific, and it was tied to Palestinian self determination. But the charter is very clear now that the board is supposed to be a replacement for failed institutions, which most recognize is the UN itself. This is not about international cooperation. This is not about the president leading the charge in the conversation on how to establish peace internationally. This is about hollowing out any opportunity to do that. Trump is not reforming or fixing international institutions. He is making him the center of them. He is saying that the United States, and more so, Trump as a personal figure, should be the one that delegates what peace looks like across the world. The same person that invaded Venezuela to kidnap a sitting president, the same person who says that casinos should be littered across the Gaza Strip. Where did the Palestinians go? I don't know, but they have to leave because we need to make room for all of the tourism and the international commerce that's potential here in the Gaza Strip. This is not a man who cares about peace. This is somebody who views himself as the primary authority and should have the final say in what happens in international affairs. This all ties back into a broader pattern of Trump's philosophy, both domestically and internationally, where loyalty is always prioritized over institutions and stability. Money is the primary mode of access. Power is centralized in himself as an authoritarian figure that can solve every problem, and retaliation is always given to those who dissent against his actions. This is how Trump governs everywhere. He is not shy about saying the quiet part out loud that he wants to be a centralized authoritarian figure who demands money and power from others in order to put himself in a position where he is on the highest pedestal. Once you normalize this abroad, it becomes very easy to justify this at home. Peace does not come from pay to enter private imperial courts. It doesn't come from tariffs and threatening economic collapse on cooperative nations. And Donald Trump making himself the chair for life is not how you establish stability. If your plan requires obedience, payments, and fear, that is not peace. That is empire behavior.